What you guys, got another video here for you on automated Windows 11 installation the easy way. Now there's quite a few ways of going about doing this, and I've made videos on this in the past, but this has been heavily updated lately, and I got an email from a gentleman called Paul, said that he wants to be able to create his own auto unattended XML file, and could I go through it in more detail and show him how to do it. So first off, head over to this website right here. I'll leave a link in the video description. The first thing you're going to need to do is choose your region and language settings. Now I speak English, so I'm going to use English as my default language. But if you're bilingual and you speak two languages, then you can basically choose maybe English as your first language, and your secondary language can be down here, and it can be Spanish, French, whatever you want to be. So make sure you change this one right here as well. That's English United Kingdom for me, because I live in the United Kingdom. But if you live in a different country, make sure they both match. Next, you can choose your secondary language and keyboard layout right here below. And this can be, say, German, French, Spanish, whatever it is that you speak. So if you do speak two languages and you want to use those, then you can choose this option right here and choose this keyboard layout right here for the language that you speak. I only speak one language, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this as one option, but there's up to 3 right here which you can choose. So next we're going to choose the home location. Now obviously it goes without saying, if you speak English, United Kingdom, and you live in the United Kingdom, your home location is going to be United Kingdom, unless you live in another country and you speak English and you want to choose a different country, that's where you choose it. Next you need to go on to process architectures right here. Now Windows 11 uses 64-bit, so you can choose 64-bit right here and use this as your main process architecture. If you want to install this on Windows ARM64, you can use the control key to select which ones you want. You can choose them all, but I would just go with 64-bit because that's pretty much the norm nowadays, unless you want to install this on ARM64. And if that is the case, then you would choose ARM64, or you can choose AMD 64-bit and Windows ARM64 as well, and it will give you the option to install on both of those. So you can see here, when you select multiple process architectures, a single autounattend.xml file will be created. Next, the setup settings. This is to bypass Windows 11 requirements, i.e. TPM, secure boot, etc. You would check mark this if you have unsupported hardware and you want to use Windows 11. You can check mark this right here. Below that, we've got allow Windows 11 to be installed without an internet connection. Make sure you read the information below, because you don't want to check mark this if you do have an internet connection. So I'll leave that unchecked. Next, we're going to move on down to use the distribution share or configuration set. This is the $OEM $. We're going to leave this unchecked because this is normally used for HP and OEM systems like Dell and Lenovo and stuff like that. So we're going to leave that unchecked. We can also move on to the next option, which is hide any PowerShell windows during the Windows setup. So by default, Windows PowerShell scripts that used during the setup process will be visible. So you can hide these in the background so you won't see them. So we'll check mark that one as well. Next, let Windows generate a random computer name. If you want to use this option, you can do. This means that it's just going to generate a name like you see right here, and this is the name it will use for your computer. If you want to get a little bit more creative, you can choose a computer name yourself and call it whatever you like. So if you're installing this across a network to multiple different computers, you might want to choose something like PC 101 or PC 102, or whatever it may be. So you can also provide a Windows PowerShell script to the computer named dynamically right here. We're not going to be covering any of that, so we're just going to let Windows generate a random computer name for us. But if you do want to use one, you can use the choose a computer name yourself. But the third option is normally used for businesses where they're installing this on multiple computers, and you can use that to set up different names for each of those computers. So that's a much more advanced option for people that work in the industry. If you're a home user, then the top let Windows generate a computer name is probably what you're going to use. Compact OS, this is another option that you can do. There's 3 of them here. Let Windows decide whether to use Compact OS, use Compact OS, or don't use Compact OS. I'm not going to be using it in my script, but Compact OS is basically compressing your operating system files. If you wanted to do that, you can use this option. Always check Microsoft's website, and this will give you all the information you need about Compact OS and what it does and how you can use it. It does help save space on the drive, but it could also slow down the system as well, in my personal experience. So it's entirely up to you whether you use it. I'm going to choose do not use Compact OS, but it's up to you. You can read all about it by just doing a search for Compact OS. Next, time zone. Let Windows determine your time zone based on your language and regional settings. I'll probably leave it on that one right here, but you can set your time zone explicitly to whatever you want right here. If you wanted to go down this route, you can just choose which option you want for your time zone. But like I said, we'll probably just leave ours, let Windows determine your time zone based on your language and regional settings. Next, moving on to partitioning and formatting. This is another tricky little area that you need to be careful of if you're going to be using the let Windows swipe the partition and format your hard drive, because it can literally wipe out data if you choose the wrong drive. So partition disk interactively during the Windows setup is what I'll be using, but let Windows setup wipe partitions and format your drive to do more specifically disk 0 using these settings. So it's going to use disk 0 as its information and wipe that disk. So if your drive is on another drive and you have data on disk 0, it will wipe that drive. So be very careful if you use this option right here. So be careful. GPT is probably the one you're going to need for Windows 11 right here if you use this option. But remember, it is using disk 0. So make sure that disk is 0 that you're installing it onto. Otherwise, it will erase whatever's on disk 0. Next, choose how to install Windows RE. You can see here, install Windows Recovery Partition, and you can change these options to your liking. You've got 1000 megabytes right here, and up the top, for the EFI system partition, I've set that to 500. And again, we can remove the Windows RE if you wanted to as well by check marking that and put the radio button in here. So all of these options are going to be for advanced users and for business users that want a particular type of install and setup of their disks. So I really wouldn't go through and do all of this just for home use. It's going to be a little bit more complicated and a little bit out of the scope of this video. So setting this up and configuring all of this is going to take a bit of work. It's probably a separate dedicated video for itself. So we're not going to be covering that in this video, but if you want to see a separate video on this and it gets a lot of interest, then I'll make a video on that particular topic. So you can see already down here, there's a beta purple sign right here, and it tells you all about what this means if you're setting this all up. So right here, it gives you all the information right here. So you can pause the video and read all of this. Some of this is basically using scripts, and you can see run this VBS script code to check the disk layout. What this is going to do to check to see whether the disk is 0 that it's installing Windows onto. And if it's not disk 0, it will just stop the installation. So most of the time, your disk is disk 0 that you're installing Windows onto. But again, if it's not, it can erase all the data. So be very careful if you don't set it up correctly. That is why I'm not going to go through and do this in case some people end up erasing drives with loads of precious data on it. So what we're going to do is go back a little bit, and we're going to let Windows deal with this, and we can manually set this up ourselves. Yes, it means you're going to have to do a interaction with this particular setup if we use the partition disk interactively during the Windows setup, which is probably going to be the best option for most people. So we're not going to be using this let Windows setup wipe your partitions and format your hard disk. We're going to be using the partition the disk interactively during the Windows setup. I just wanted to cover that a little bit because Paul did touch on that in his email, and he did mention about this part here. He just said, could you explain it a little bit? But basically, there's not a lot to explain. It says it pretty much there on the screen. So you just got to be super careful if you're using that option and set it up correctly. So what we're going to do next is we're going to move on down to this next section, which is the Windows Edition using the generic product key. So right here, if you use the generic product key, this is going to allow you to select what version of Windows or edition of Windows you want to install. So for instance, if you want to install Windows Pro, you would leave this to Windows Pro. If you want to use a separate different type of operating system like Windows Pro Education or Home use, or you put Home inside here and it will generally use that option. You can enter your product key as well by using the radio button here and use the product key that you have to hand. Normally this is used for business use and people will have a volume key and they will put it in that box right there. So enter the product key internally during the Windows setup. You can do that right here as well. And you can also use the product key that's stored in the BIOS or UEFI firmware. This is normally used for OEM systems like HP, Dell, Lenovo and all those computers. So we don't really need to worry about that here. But if you did have it and you wanted to use that option, you can use that option if you wanted to. So I'm going to use the user generic product key and use Windows 11 Pro. Next, we're going to use the user accounts right here. Let Windows set up and create the following local offline account. So this will choose the account name, the display name, the password, and the group. We can use multiple different setups here if we wanted to. I'm going to delete this user one right here. And you can see account name is admin. We can leave it whatever we like. We can call it Brian, we can call it Britec, we can call it Tim, Jim, whatever you want to do. You just name it right here as the account name. The display name you can change, and the password, if you wanted to add a password, this is where you would add it in. It's going to be part of the administrator group. So if you want it to set up an account like the account name and the group, which is administrators, it will do this on every single installation if you want to set it up like that. Also, we've got some first logon options right here. Again, self-explanatory. It says it right there on the screen. You can log on to the first administrator account that's created above, and then you can activate the built-in administrator and log on to this account and set up a password right here. Or you can say do not log on. The installation ends when the sign in screen being shown. So you can choose any of those options you want right here. So as it is set up right now, what this is going to do is give us an account name, offline account name called Britec, and it's going to be administrator in the administrator group. If you want to add a Microsoft Online account using interactively during the Windows setup, this will let you set it up yourself, and this will be forced Microsoft Online account. If you want to have a local offline user account interactively during the Windows setup, which means you will be doing it yourself during the setup process, you would have this option right here. So if you're using the above option, you're only going to be installing it on one computer. This option you can install on many different computers because you'll be setting up the user account during the Windows setup process. You'll be interacting with the computer, so it's not fully automated, whereas the other option is fully automated. So this is probably going to be for people that want to set it up on different computers. And this option right up here is going to be just on that one computer, because obviously you can't have Britec and administrator on every single computer. So depending on what you want to set up, I'm going to be putting it into this option right here, add a local offline account. And we're going to be doing that during the Windows setup. Next, we got password and expiration. This obviously is self-explanatory. Passwords do not expire. This means that the password will never expire and it will be used that same password all the time. If you want to use the default Windows default password and it expires in 42 days, you would use this option right here. That means you would have to replace that password in 42 days. You can use even custom password expiration right here and maybe put 10 days, and that will force the client to change their password in 10 days time. A bit excessive, but that's basically what businesses will force you to do to make sure you're changing your password regularly to keep it updated and more secure. So let's move on to the account lockout policy. Again, these are all business related. You can see here, use default policy. By default, Windows locks you out of your account after 10 failed login attempts and within 10 minutes, and it will lock you out for 10 more minutes. So basically, automatically, you'll be unlocked in 10 minutes if you failed 10 login attempts. Now, if you disable this policy, this is obviously going to introduce brute force attacks. This means someone could sit there attempting to crack your password and typing in loads of different passwords and they won't be locked out. You can use a custom policy right here, and this will also lock you out of your account on the number that you set here. A lot of businesses will set this up, so lock you out of your account on 5 login attempts within, say, 5 minutes, and you can lock it out for, say, for a period of time. So the account will be unlocked, say, in 60 minutes. That will be 1 hour. So 5 failed attempts within 5 minutes, you'll be locked out for 60 minutes. And this is what they would set. So we're going to use the default policy. 10 failed login attempts within 10 minutes, you'll be locked out for 10 minutes. That's the default policy. Let's move on down to File Explorer tweaks. Again, there's some useful tweaks here which you normally have to set up after you've installed Windows. These are Use File Explorer default settings. These are what you would normally get when you've installed Windows. But you can see right here, hide protected operating system files. This will only hide files and both hidden and system files attribute set. That means it will show hidden files like app data and things like that, but lock your Windows directory. This shows all files, and this again will be showing all of the Windows directories that are hidden and also app data and all these other ones. So we're going to use the middle one right here. This will show app data. Next, we're going to go for always show file extensions. This is useful if you want to show the extension of files. This is a security measure. I think it should be on by default, and this means that you'll see .exe, .pdf and so on. So we'll leave that check marked. Use the classic custom right-click context menu for Windows 11. This means you're going to get the old school context menu, one click, and it will be a full menu. We can open File Explorer to this PC instead of quick access. I like that option as well. And this is a new option that they've added in, which says show end task command in taskbar. So this is really good. This is a development feature which is in Windows 11, and this will allow this feature to be enabled. So I'm going to allow all of these to be enabled. Next, let's move on to the next option, which is Start Menu and Taskbar Settings. This is another new option which they've added into this script, which I think is a really nice added feature as well. So if you want to see what you see on the screen right here, which is the default setting, which is full, you can leave that as is, or you can put the radio button in your favorite choice. I like this option right here. But some people like to see very little on the taskbar, and that would be the option right there. But I'm going to go for this option right here. But again, your installation, your choice. You choose whatever you like. So let's move on down to the choose icons to display in the taskbar. This is another feature that they've added in right here. So by user default icons, this means that all of the icons that you get during the Windows installation, like Copilot, and all the other junk that is embedded onto the taskbar, which you have to then go and remove. You can remove all the icons and just leave the start button if you wanted to by having the radio button in this option. If you want to get a little bit more creative, you can use the configure icons using an XML file, and this can be very complex, and it will be very useful for people that want to maybe have something on there that is not on the list. You can click on the more examples right here. This will take you to the Microsoft's website, and you can read up all about it, and it gives you a good example of how you can configure this XML file and make it really customized to your liking. This is also a very useful feature for businesses that want to have custom icons onto their taskbar. So if you want to sit down and go through all of that, you can do. Again, this is another option for a separate video. I'm just going to remove all icons in this video. But if you want to see separate videos on this, then let me know in the comments section down below. Next, let's move on to some of the options available down here, which is like disable widgets. This is that news icon or weather icon that you have on your taskbar. I'm going to hide that right there. Again, left alignment for your Windows start button, you can have it on the left or in the middle. I'm going to leave it in the middle because I have a widescreen monitor and it looks silly on the left, so I'm going to leave that alone and leave it unchecked. But a lot of people like to check mark this to keep it old school and have it to the left. Next up, we can also hide the task view button from the taskbar. So this is another option that you can check mark if you don't want to have that on your taskbar. If you do, then obviously don't check mark it. It's that simple. We also have another option below that which says always show all tray icons, and you can read the message down below. I'm going to leave that unchecked. Next, we've got do not show Bing results when searching in the start menu of your search box. So when you open up the search box, basically you get a load of ads inside there, and this will just add a registry edit to make sure that doesn't show up there. So depending on what options you want, I'm going to leave these as is, and we can now move on to the next option. So down on the bottom here, you can see for Windows 10, you have this option right here, and also we have Windows 11, but we're doing Windows 11 here, but this also works for Windows 10 as well. So just see here, configure the tiles that are initially shown in Windows 10 start menu, but because we're on Windows 11, we're just going to move down to the Windows 11 section right here. So you can remove all the pinned icons right here. These are all those little pesky icons that have not been installed. They're just on the system. They're normally pinned on here. This is already a clean install, but normally that's what you get here, and it will remove all those. Also, we have the configure pins using a JSON file that is created by PowerShell. If you want to get creative, you can jump into that right there as well. There is information on Microsoft's website on how to do all of this stuff. So if you want to jump in and have a read about this sort of stuff, then by all means do so. You can just do a simple search or click on some of the short keys right here. This goes into great detail on how to configure all of this and how to set it all up. I'm not going to be doing any of that in this video because the video will be hours and hours long. And we're already 21 minutes in, and you know what people are like. They've just got attention span of a goldfish. So let's not bother with that. So we're going to go remove all pins, and we're going to move on down to the system tweaks right here. So disable Windows Defender. I do not recommend that you disable Windows Defender, but again, if you do want to do it, that option is available. Disable Windows updates, the same for that. I don't recommend you do any of these at all, but if you do, then this is how you would do it. You would just check mark these boxes and it will take care of that for you. Another one I don't recommend, disable user account control. That's another option that people like to do because they don't want that pop box popping up all the time every time they install something or do something. And we also have disable Smart App Control. This turns Smart App Control off on Windows 11, but once it's off, you're not going to be able to turn that back on. Again, we've got disable Smart Screen in Windows and Edge. I wouldn't recommend any of that either. And disable Fast Startup, disable System Protection, System Restore. I would leave that alone as well. Enable long paths. If you want to do that, you can check mark this one right here. It explains exactly what it does just below there. I'm not going to check mark any of these ones right here. Again, enable remote desktop service, RDP. If you do use that remote desktop service, then obviously you would check mark this. I'm not going to check mark it. And harden ACLs. Again, it explains a little bit about that below. But again, you can just check mark which ones you want to do for your install. I'm not going to check mark any of these. Again, allow extensions of PowerShell scripts and things like that. If you want to use that option, you can do. These are advanced options. A lot of people do like to tinker and they love to do this sort of stuff. Some people do like to disable fast startup. I'm just going to leave all of these alone and not touch any of these. There is probably a couple of ones that I might do here, which is prevent Windows updates from rebooting your computer. And this one right here, disable app suggestions, content delivery manager. I'm definitely going to be disabling that one as well. And we'll also prevent device encryption. This is BitLocker, which is turned on by default. I will probably have this one check marked as well. So this one I need to do as well, which is for stopping the false reboots after a Windows updates. Just in case you're away from the PC, it will basically restart the PC. I don't want to do that. Hide Edge, the first run experience. That means you're not going to go through that painful setup every time you install Windows. Again, disable startup boost and background mods. This means that Edge is not going to be running in the background all the time and taking up all your system resources. Make Edge uninstallable. I'm not going to check mark this one, but you can do if you want to uninstall it. I just want to leave it on the system because I know that it can cause a lot of problems. and if you remove it, it may come back down and install itself during an update, and I really can't be dealing with all the palaver and breaking the operating system, so I'm just going to leave it on there. Next, we've got some other options here like disable enhanced pointer precision on your mouse, and you got delete the empty C :/windows.old folder. If you want to delete that, you can do. I'm leaving that unchecked. And again, that's pretty much all those settings. Visual effects, I see a lot of YouTube videos still talking about this old hat stuff. I really wouldn't waste your time on any of this stuff. It makes Windows look really horrible when you use some of these options here. But this is this option right here. I'll quickly show you just so you know what it is. Basically, inside system here, I'm going to go to down the bottom here for about. This is typical Windows 11. 30 clicks to get to a location. I've changed everything and it's really annoying. And this is the box that you're going to get when you click here. Go to performance. And some people believe that this really does help the system. It might do if you have a really old potato computer. But basically, if you've got a modern day computer, you don't need to mess with any of that stuff. It just makes it look really horrible. So if you do want to use custom settings, you can come in here and basically configure this to your own liking or just to best performance, entirely up to you. I'm leaving that as default. Next, desktop icons, pretty much the same as many a year ago. Bit old at nowadays, but some people like to go in here and put on control panel, desktop, downloads and this PC and home and so on onto the desktop. They won't be shortcuts, they will be actual folders, and it will obviously clutter up your desktop. But if you do want to have those on there like we used to do in Windows XP, by all means do so. But I'm going to leave that as default and it will keep the desktop nice and clean. Okay, so virtual machine support. This means that you can install Oracle VirtualBox Guest Editions or install VMware tools and install this one right here. If you want to use any of this stuff, then you can check mark this. I'm leaving this unchecked. And we also have the change the Wi-Fi. Also, you can set up your Wi-Fi. I'm going to do this during the Windows setup. If you want to configure that during the Windows setup, you can do. You can skip this also if you also use a Ethernet connection, which is what I do here. So I'm not going to set up Wi-Fi, but if you do want to set it up, that's where you set it up. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, moving on to Express settings here. Disable all. This will not send any diagnostic data, personalized input to your location history to Microsoft. You can disable all these. Some people think this is a major privacy concern, so they like to disable all this stuff, and this will stop them from sending diagnostic personalized data to Microsoft about your system. So just disable all of that stuff. Next, your lock key settings. Again, if you have a large keyboard that has the keypad on the right hand side, you may want to configure this to your own liking. And this is where it is caps lock off. Num lock, some people like to leave this on. And you got scroll lock as well. You can toggle these to how you like them. I'm just going to leave this as default. But again, if you want to configure that, you can do. Personalized settings is down the below here. You can go through here. And this is another new beta option available to choose your color scheme. So if you want to personalize your default color theme, you can do. And you can use the default color theme, which is what is done by Microsoft, or you can come in here and change these to dark and have this in dark mode. Accent color, you can have that black if you want to, or make it blue or whatever color you like. I'll probably go with, say, blue, a really garish blue, just to show you what it looks like. But choose whatever color you like here and choose a really nice theme to make it look really nice and make it pop. Next, below here, we've got show accent colors on the start menu and taskbar, and also show accent colors on the title bars and window borders, and windows and surfaces appear transparent. You can do all of this right here. I'm just going to check mark all this just to show you basically, but you can choose to set this up how you like. I would choose a color that you like here. I'll probably go with blue. Change that a little bit later on. And we can now move on to the next option, which is desktop wallpaper. If you really want to add a wallpaper of your choice at this stage, you can have it as a static color if you want to, or solid color. You can have this set to one of those here, or you can get a bit more creative. This is another new feature they've added in. which is providing you with a wallpaper of your choice. So you can change this as long as you've got a direct link to the image which is online, you can actually change it. So let me just quickly show you here. I'll highlight this little link right here and we'll go to the browser and I'll show you. This is the web image what we're going to be using for the wallpaper by default by them, but you can use whatever one you like. So let me go ahead and I'll put a custom one in here to use for the installation. So I'm just going to highlight this section right here and post in my own link with my own image. That's done now. So let's move on down to the remove bloatware. This is the image I'm going to be using, by the way. So we'll just use something like this. It needs to be a direct link to that image, otherwise it won't work. So next we're going to go ahead and use the remove bloatware. This is where you're going to remove all of the bloatware that comes pre-installed in Windows. I like to select all of these like so, and then uncheck the stuff I want to keep. It's probably the easiest way to go forward. So let's go ahead and just uncheck some of this stuff like calculator you might want to keep, and you might want to keep, say for instance, well, we don't want to keep Skype because that's end of life. We might want to keep, say, Xbox apps, and we might want to keep Windows Media Player, the modern one, and you might want to keep, say for instance, say photos and movies and TV. If you want to remove all this stuff, you can just leave it all checkmarked. It's entirely up to you what you want to use and what you don't want to use on your install. So I've gone with something looking like this, and we can now move on to the next section. So running scripts, this is another area that people might want to see a video on. This is going to be far too in-depth for this video because obviously there's a lot that you can add inside here to change settings during the installation process. And again, there's plenty of people out there that have got already auto-unattended Windows install XML files that you can use. And there's also really advanced ones out there. You can also use other methods as well for doing all of this. So if you want to get real deep and into this sort of stuff, there's some code here. Say, for instance, download and install Google Chrome. Again, Chris Titus Tech, and also there is WinHance and other ones like that, which you can use if you want something that's more advanced. But this is what you can do with this particular auto-unattended XML file. So some of those, WinHance is based on this, and it also has another part to it as well. So you can get pretty creative. I would suggest that you just basically create what I'm showing you right here, and then you can add a lot of this stuff in and edit inside Notepad++ as well. If you know a bit about adding stuff into these files, you can do. If not, then you'll just have to use the plain basic one that I've just showed you how to set up, because some of this stuff can get a bit more complex. But if you want to see a video on it, let me know in the comments section down below, and I'll do my best to show you how you can add stuff in using this method here. It is going to be a long process, but it does explain a lot of it on their website. So you can just basically go through here and configure it and work it out for yourself. So we're going to skip that part for now and leave this for this video. But again, this is quite useful if you want to turn off a lot of privacy and security settings and save you from having to go in there and do it there. I've also created batch files, so showing you how you can do that and create those as well to do all that in a simple one click. Or you can use Shutup 10, which will take care of a lot of that stuff after you've installed using your auto unattended XML file. You can use something like that, or Chris Titus Text Tool, or whatever it is you want to use. There's tons of options out there. We're not going to be covering any of this stuff either, which is XML markup for more components. Again, you can read all about that, all available components. There's a link there that explains all of this stuff. But I think that's pretty much good enough for what you need. And if you need anything other than that, you can always use one of the other tools that are available. Again, it's entirely up to you which method you install Windows on. Now, what can you do with this file? Well, you'll need to download Windows 11 ISO, or you can create a bootable Windows 11 USB drive and just drop this onto the root directory of that drive. It's that simple. That's all you need to do. But if you want to put it inside the ISO itself, then you can download the ISO, and then you can use something like AnyBurn, download this, and then drop that file into the root of that actual ISO and then create the ISO again. It's very simple. I'll show you how quickly to do it. Just hit this bit here saying edit image file, and then choose your ISO that you've just downloaded from Microsoft. Go to next here, and basically all you need to do once you click next is click on the add button, and this is the root of that ISO, and that's exactly where we want to put in our auto unattended XML file. Just click on add, the big green button up the top with a plus sign on it. We've just added that file into the root of that ISO, and it's that simple. You can add it into the root of the USB flash drive as well. When you install Windows, it's going to talk to that actual auto unattended file, and it's going to use all of the configuration settings that you've just set up and install Windows in that manner. So let me just quickly show you basically what it looks like once we get it installed on a virtual machine. Just renaming the ISO file so I can create it. And we can now create the ISO just by clicking next, and it's going to go ahead and do that. Now I know this has been a long-winded video, but some people don't understand when you're creating videos, you're trying to give as much information as possible, and some people haven't got attention for that and they just start complaining. But you know, I'm either giving too much information or not enough information. So this one is probably on the too much information side of things. Same thing goes for people that skip videos. They miss what I say and then they start cussing me out in the comments section. And if they watch the video, they would see I already covered that. Anyway, this is the end result. I told you I'd make a garish blue theme background. You can change the colors to something more likable. I just did it so you can actually see what happens, and I changed the wallpaper here. And you can add some extra icons here. You could have customized that inside the setup to put those icons right there if you wanted to. I just chose not to because I needed to get this video done because it's now getting up there in minutes. It's 37 minutes. Anyway, with that said, my name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section whether you want to see more, and I'll do my best to make those videos for you. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.